Hi, everybody. It is Tim Wood and a late edition, 5 o'clock, a 5 o'clock edition of Looped In Live here on Facebook, on, uh, on Periscope, and on YouTube. So glad to glad to be on with you. We had some issues with streaming last night, but everything seems to be good today. So we will move forward and hope all is well. Hope you all had a great day. All right, so just some things that we wanted to address. We've got a we have coming up. We've got an interview with City Councilor Steve Saba. He's kind of been quiet. He, along with Eunice Ziegler, don't have they have a campaign, but they're not facing anyone. So they going to need a small amount of votes to get back. So, but we will talk to Steve Saba. We will also talk to one of the founders, the founder of a new Methuen Methuen focused Facebook page, a public page that is focusing on positivity, something that we all could use a little bit more of right now. I think the political season tends to get a lot of folks riled up, and for good reason. Um, we've endured a lot of different issues, a lot of different crises over the last 2 years, especially last 3 years. But I think I wanted to get your feedback in terms of the debate last night and what you saw from the candidates. I was impressed. Typically I have not been a a fan of kind of that forum approach, but I thought last night, I thought the questions were great. I thought, for the most part, I thought both candidates did well. I think what I took away from it overall is that uh, some vague answers in some spots. Um, Dan Shabila says, "I'm on the train." Some vague answers in some answers. I think I heard a lot of integrity and a lot of fact and data based decisions in terms of Neil Perry. I heard a lot of focus on past experience and how she would use that past experience to make informed decisions. I heard a lot of that from Jen Canan. I think that one of the things that I was impressed with, I thought that they both, um, for the most part, stayed focused on themselves. I thought when they had a chance to ask each other questions, um, quite honestly, I would have preferred that to be the entire format at this stage of the game. And we already had the forum where there was back and forth in terms of questions. I would have preferred to just what I found most interesting was when they were asking each other direct questions that they wanted answers from on specific issues, and so I thought that um, both of their answers in terms of knowing what you know today, voting no on uh, the MOU. I thought that was very interesting. I thought that let me see some other notes. I was impressed with Mr. Perry's discussion about a long term plan. I think he brought that up a few times. Um, I think bringing it up and then knowing what to do with it are two different things. I would have liked to hear more specifics in terms of what he would do. I think one of the things that me as a voter, um, first of all, I want to say, like, I was impressed with I was impressed. And hey, Bob Kelly, I see you're aboard. I was impressed with um, the depth of knowledge in terms of the moderator Seth Graham. So I was impressed there. I just I think that there was a lot of talk from Perry in terms of needing to go in and evaluate and be fact based, and I didn't quite understand the continued reliance, and continued going back to the not making emotional decisions. Um, I don't know. I'm not a woman, so I wouldn't know. I just didn't understand. If I'm a woman, I keep hearing that. It seems like a very um, old school type of approach, a man versus woman, but in a campaign, I just didn't understand that. So if I'm off base on that in terms of the emotional versus the fact based, again, I'm not a woman. I'm a man, so I don't really, I can't speak to how that hit me. I just didn't understand the whole continuing in terms of the fact and data based decisions. Um, I don't think it differentiated him from her in that situation because I've got what is that I have on my screen here? That's odd. Um, wow, what is that? Okay, so it's not in my. All right, click on that. No, I don't know what that is. Maybe I don't know if you're seeing it. It looks like a blue and white star on my screen on Facebook. So, uh, I'd be curious to hear what y'all have to say. In terms of if you watched the debate, what you heard. Um, I thought again. I think that I I applaud Perry for just the discussion of a 3 to 5 year forecast, the discussion of a long term plan. I don't think I, I don't think we're like we got to go farther out, and that's I've seen smaller cities than this with 15 to 20-year plans, and it's not just forecasting spending, it's forecasting needs, it's anticipating um, anticipating maintenance issues, anticipating growth, and so I want to hear more in terms of commercial and what would be done in terms of commercial use. I heard uh, I heard a number that, and I can't remember where I heard it, quite honestly. Um, I heard a number being broached in terms of, typically a city would have, 20 to 25% in terms of a commercial base, a commercial revenue base, and that Methuen we're at about 11% right now. That's just unacceptable. And I think New Balance coming is a great thing, but I want to hear more. Um, why did Siri turn on? I hate Siri. Just a sec. No, 25. No, I don't need to hear from you, Siri. I'm looking at my phone and Siri is like dictating what I'm saying. I'm like, what's going on? Um, so I want to hear more specifics in terms of commercial. Like when they were talking about recreational, Perry brought up ball fields and soccer fields, but I just like where we need them. We need an outdoor basketball court in terms of we need more fields and more green spaces in the city. How are we going to fund that? Where are we going to find the money for that? Um, uh, you think So Rich La Rochelle, okay. So again, that's why I asked for folks' reaction. The emotions don't have to do with being one; it has to do with Methuen's past administrations, and it's a great point. I felt, and if you look at our last 2 years, there was a ton of emotion, um, and not a whole lot of common sense from the mayor in terms of decision making, in terms of communication. Um, so I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of if we're comparing it to past administrations, and I appreciate the clarification there. Rich said that he had heard that from Neil at a coffee shop meet and greet in terms of how to make those decisions. So appreciate that clarification because again I that's it struck me, but what struck me more, I just didn't understand why he kept coming back to it. But now understanding in terms of comparing it to past administrations, that makes a lot more sense. So, Rich, thank you for that. I think that I was just like I was put off by the lack of specifics in terms of how we would create more green space, how we would create a land use fund. If how we and to his credit, Perry actually did mention TIFs, which is an important way of um, holding these developers accountable and in them adding funds to our not just tax revenue, but specifically targeted dollars. Um, you know, as the for instance, a past town I lived in, Bluffton, South Carolina, they put a lot of TIF money, and they held the developers accountable to specific projects, to specific um, use, whether it be schools, whether it be ball fields, recreation spaces. Yeah, I think it is hard to Rich. It is That's a good point. It's hard to get into specifics when you're on a time limit, and that's one of the things I didn't really like about I didn't like about the format. I think you have to give more time to folks to talk. You can't be unlimited, um, unless we're doing this, for instance, in this forum, when you're not paying for studio time. Um, I think that, but I think that they do need more time to delve into specific issues. So, and then Stephen Saba says, God isn't making more land. Agreed, but like there are spots where we could create green spaces in vacant spots that have just been sitting there for a long time, and um, again, that goes back to long term planning um, and having a recreation department, quite honestly, that is focused on finding those spaces and identifying those needs as they are in running specific programs. So, um, so, I didn't understand. Perry went to mentioned in terms of commercial. He mentioned music bingo, and I think the concept was we need more fun things to do. I'm not sure in terms of like we're creating a specific music bingo hall. I mean, it has swept the city, so maybe DJ Edna's already looking at space. I don't know. Um, in terms of fun things to do, in terms of creating space, good space, and in, interesting slots of land for a restaurant row or a entertainment type of complex. Not a lot of specifics there. So yeah, I think that um, overall, I thought it was interesting. I I thought that you saw the differences between the candidates last night. Um, I thought that Kanan was much more pointed, and I think, you know, one of the things that I wanted to say was that Tom Duggan, for instance, Tom Duggan brought this up in the Valley Patriot, this issue that, and it was good to hear from him because there's been so many attacks on this in terms of conflicts of interest. I just, like, having family devoted to public service, I don't understand how that's been a discussion in terms of conflicts of interest. And then from there, there's just no specifics that they could bring up in terms of Kanan and conflicts of interest. So I thought that was interesting to see from Duggan, and good to see from Duggan. I think that you saw the differences, and I think what I've said here is, I think, like, the change candidate finished third in terms of the outsider, the newcomer. You have someone that's been in working in government for 10 years. You have someone that has a team full of advisors and that have run the city in the past, or are politically involved. So in terms of the change, I tend, now that I'm looking at two candidates that are not like outsiders like I thought was the mandate. Now I'm looking at how can we get going from day one here? And I heard a lot of analysis needed, a lot of studying things, a lot of getting to know folks from Perry. While that is important, you have a candidate that has a lot of these established relationships already, and that can really hit the ground running from day one. And I think that's what we need right now in terms of making a lot of decisions. So, I mean, that's how I'm evaluating what I'm looking at. And, again, taking personal affinities out of the equation, or frustration over recent recent spats out of the equation. If I'm just evaluating the candidates, that's what I'm looking for. I'm interested to hear what you as a voter are looking for. David Consoli says he relocated 2 years ago, and I'll put this up on the screen. All city departments bent over backwards to help me with permits, approvals, and construction logistics. City officials want more business, but residents in the past object to business expansion. It's the not in my backyard effect. Absolutely, and great point, David. I think, and I think you specifically hear that around recreational or medicinal marijuana. No one even wants to go there because of the not in my backyard effect. And because of that, just in not even having that discussion, we're missing the boat. Again, I don't even have to give my opinion on how I think about marijuana. It's just a fact. It is legal in Massachusetts now. And so, as a business opportunity, you have towns that are way far ahead of it than we are, and it has a lot to do with that not in my backyard effect. So great point, David. I don't, and Steve Saba, that's why we have commercial districts. We have too many empty storefronts and manufacturing locations. Absolutely, that's my point specifically, is that we have too many empty storefronts, and even the folks that move in, you had a business downtown move in to the spot next to Guitar Garage, and she was out of there within a year, and it's because um, there's not a lot. If A, there's not a lot of foot traffic downtown at the moment, but B, I honestly, I would disagree in terms of small business with David. I don't see a lot of support for small business. I don't see a lot of economic development and resources support for small for attracting business and then helping small business thrive. I think that's one of the things that I wanted to hear and said I it was really disappointed. Like 2 years ago, it was all about we kept asking about downtown, downtown, downtown in all the answers, the question and answers, and now it's not even being discussed. It's like we've just like shelved it. Like we had money allocated to to make change downtown. There was a plan put forth, but now we're not even hearing anything about it. And that's frustrating, and we're not hearing any discussion of it. There was no discussion of it in the mayoral debate, which was really frustrating. There was no discussion of marijuana and stances on marijuana in the debate. Downtown. So Shabelia says downtown is done as soon as they fill those 14 units. It'll kill parking. Yeah, it's a perfect example. They haven't like they're supposed to allocate parking spots. They're going to have 14 units, which is going to add probably 20 new cars. Maybe that's high, but 14 to 20 new cars parking there every day. And the parking lot they have is not big enough. The parking lot that is there now and has been repaved is actually useful in terms of downtown parking. So, yeah, Bada Bing, Country Kitchen, they're gonna suffer, unfortunately, and it's not even hear any discussion of downtown. It's just maddening. And so. Let's see. Steve Angelo says land grants to the state can cover up to $400,000. Add that to the screen so you can see it. Land grants to the state can cover up to $4,000 in purchasing land or property for the purpose of recreation. Absolutely. And so that's how you start to build up that fund. And again, I saw the same things being done in Hilton Head Island, for instance. Everybody thinks of Hilton Head as this golf mecca. Well, there's a lot of people that live there year round, and it is landlocked. Like Steve Saba said earlier, find me some land to build on. It's landlocked, so they worked to identify specific spots that they could buy, and then worked through grants, through grants and incentive programs with the state, through private fundraising within the city by reallocating some unused funds within the city into this land use fund. They found the money, and they found the money to incrementally buy back these spaces, create more green space, create parks, create ball fields, create basketball courts, create a community center that's used by youth and seniors, and so to me that I don't not big on the folks who say, well, this is how it happened where I was, this is how it should happen here. But that to me is a specific example that I can point to where I saw a spot that didn't have a lot of land, and they creatively found the money and found the land a little bit at a time to repurpose and evolve the city footprint. And I want to hear more specifics in terms of a long-term master plan, long-term hopes, long-term dreams in terms of what we can do with the city. God didn't make, he created, Ed Quinn says in response to Steve. So, I'll definitely feel more of your thoughts on the debate last night. Again, I think just the more that we hear from both candidates, the better. In a impartial and atmosphere. I think that the more the better. So we're gonna see them in another debate uh, with Duggan. So and again, as I've said, I thought that Tom did a great job with the first debates. I think it gets in a little hinkier water now that you saw some of the advertising that he as a publisher chose to run in his publication, um, and some of um, the slanted writing in terms of covering each race. Some candidates were called for quotes. Some candidates weren't. Um, I and uh, you could tell who he's endorsing through the way he wrote each write up for the candidates. So I think that's quite honestly even worse in terms of going about it that way. So I I I'm going to be interested. I think he's actually filming a central debate right now. So I'm going to be interested to see how how that shakes out in terms of um, is is he as impartial or as balanced as he was in the first round of debates? I think the more discussion between the candidates, the more that we can evaluate in turn and differentiate these candidates. You have great candidates in every race that bring a lot to the table. Uh, and with these city council races, four candidates in the central, in the west, in at large, that all bring something to the table. So I want to. I think we need to get more to the heart of it in terms of how they differentiate themselves. One thing that really struck me um, in the first at large discussion was how similar Steve Angelo and Nick and DJ and I thought Jessica Finicaro was quite honestly the only one that differentiated herself in that first debate in terms of what she would do. The other three seemed to agree on so many issues, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just in trying to evaluate how they would perform and which one I'm going to vote for. It makes it difficult. So I want to see more of that in these debates moving forward, so that we as voters can make educated decisions. So like I said, hit me in the comments in terms of your thoughts on the debate. I think the other big story today that I wanted to bring up, and that we've covered on Methuen today, on the Methuen Today Facebook page, PMA. I think the word is starting to leak out, or not leak out, but circulate wide in terms of PMA closing at the end of the 2019-20 school year. It's a huge blow to the city. It's a huge blow to the city. And I think Rich in the comments mentioned earlier that there's a GoFundMe page. I got hit up on that last night. It's linked on our Facebook page. I think that's a tall effort. But again, I applaud the student. I believe her name's Emily Yee, who started the GoFundMe. So, I think. Let's see. Yeah, Emily Lee. So, I applaud her for being proactive, and when she heard this news, didn't take it sitting down. She created a GoFundMe page. So whether she'll be able to raise $800,000 to keep the school open, it's a tall order. And it's disappointing to see that they've said that they've exhausted all their avenues in terms of fundraising, in terms of enrollment, in terms of attracting new students. The letter that was sent out to alumni and then posted on their website today said that presentation of Mary's sisters have contributed over $2 million in the past 3 years to support the school, but it's impossible for the sisters to continue that financial support. Um, you know, Mayor DeJuga, just one of many reactions. A lot of alumni, a lot of fans of the school um, shared a lot of the same sentiment. He said, like many residents of Methuen, I learned this morning about the decision of PMA to close its doors at the end of the school year. PMA has been an integral part of the community for over 60 years, educating high school age young women and more recently young men from Methuen and other communities in Massachusetts and beyond. PMA graduates have been extremely successful in their chosen fields and have made significant contributions to Methuen. It is disappointing that he says that City Hall just heard about this morning. I'm interested to know whether there was any dialogue between PMA and the city. Again, it's a private school, but it's such an institution, that not that the city can step in and write a check to keep PMA going, but I would hope that there was some dialogue there in terms of trying to connect them with resources that maybe they hadn't thought of. You have extremely talented leadership there, led by head of school Rose Maria Redmond. So I know that they exhausted every avenue, and it's really sad. And I think when we talk about real estate, and unfortunately, and I think it's too soon to really have this discussion, but that is some valuable real estate. And I think that I'm just noticing in my article that I said that they spent over $1 to build the Dupre Center, so I'm gonna just fix that real quick. My bad there. They spent over $1 million to fix to construct the Dupre Center, So that in and of itself could be a community resource. That land is going to be very valuable. So I'm going to be really interested to see what happens. And I don't want to say it's over yet. Maybe there's some last second Hail Marys here that can be thrown. And now that this news is out there, maybe this really activates the alumni in finding some solutions here. Not always an easy path, though, so we're going to see what happens there. I'm going to take a quick break, just a very quick break, and come back afterwards. We'll talk Positively Methuen, an interview with the founder of that new Facebook page, Luann Santos, and in that spirit, I'm going to give you a little look at what was in my Facebook feed today, just positive things going on around the city. So we'll do that right after this here on Looped In Live. Attention small business owners. Looped In Live wants you. Help us keep the conversation alive and continue with the only weekly show devoted to news, current events, and the leaders and newsmakers of Methuen. Get the best marketing bargain in the Merrimack Valley and support local news and independent journalism. For just $50 per week, your business will be promoted on the web, social media, and in our shows to our wide-spanning audience. Call or text me, Tim Wood, at 843-290-6242 today, or email me at tim@methuentoday.com. All right, quick break to just get my get a breath there. Tim Wood here with you on Looped In Live. So came across a new Facebook page. Folks are starting them all the time. And put a bow on the conversation about PMA. Steve Saba says it's going to take a huge effort between the city, PMA, and the community to come up with a viable solution to save that property. Well, so and I'm glad that was the first thought in terms of saving it. Like I said, I'm hopeful that now that this news has been made public, that we can have discussions about saving the property. That it doesn't immediately turn to how we're going to redevelop it or what we're going to do with that land. So it's devastating news to fans of the school, to alumni, to current students. I heard, saw some folks saying it could they at least, be able to go another couple of years so that the folks that are in house now don't accept new incoming classes, but just graduate the classes that are there. It's a tall order if they're struggling financially the way that it seems they are at the moment. So, but I certainly appreciate and understand that sentiment. So, want to just kind of want to set this up. There's a new page on Facebook called Positively Methuen. I think at this time, at this juncture, at where we are with the city, positive energy is really needed, and it's at times a rare commodity in a lot of the discussions that we see. Although there's wonderful things and wonderful things going on around the community. Methuen Day, just the latest example. There's some things that, and just again specifically on Methuen Day, there's some things that they need to address moving forward. I think that the fact that they had an issue, like the idea is to attract folks to downtown, but in doing that, they ended up closing one of the downtown businesses for the day because Country Kitchen just decided not to open because the roads were being shut down at 7 a.m. that morning. So I thought I had seen, I'd seen them as a vendor listed with Methuen Day, so I thought that situation had been resolved. And I think what happened is there was discussion that there was going to be one-way traffic on that street, and they found out the Thursday before Methuen Day that there's not going to be one-way traffic. Everything's going to be closed at 7 a.m. And with the clientele that Country Kitchen has, they need the parking. They need a close proximity for a lot of the seniors that go there for Saturday morning breakfast. So, to see a one of the businesses that's gutting it out down there lose $2,000 for in on one of the busiest days, the busiest day of the week for them. It's disappointing. So I think like that sort of stuff just needs to be ironed out. And again, so many positive things with Methuen Day, but I think there just needs to be more communication ahead of time between the officials and the businesses down there. I don't understand why they haven't looked at Osgood Street. And maybe they have. I just haven't heard that. Why they wouldn't look at Osgood Street instead of Hampshire Street as a location, having the park right there, not having a ton of businesses that are even the ones that are there aren't open Saturdays. So again, you saw from year one to year two how that event grew. And how it evolved and the things that they did to make it better. So, they've already got that proven track record of doing that. So I think you're just going to see that moving forward. And I'm excited to see year three of it. So in terms of positive energy, I was able to catch up with the founder of Positively Methuen, Luann Santos. So let's talk to her now. We're here with Luann Santos, the founder of the Positively Methuen Facebook group. Luann, tell us a little bit what was the inspiration behind starting this?
Well, I could say Megan Murphy from the Kindness Rocks Project. She came up and was very generous, donated her time, sat in a lot of traffic to come up to my son's fundraiser. And she is the founder of the Kindness Rocks Project. It's a Facebook page and internet. She has a large following. It's all about spreading kindness through rocks. So after speaking with her, I just felt this positivity about the need to spread kindness and how good it makes you feel. And her words were genuine, and I wanted to share that with everyone around us. And it was just a little idea that I had, and I figured, what could it hurt? And just kind of plant the seed. So I did it, and I had a couple people reach out and say, hey, anything you need, please let me know, I'll help. And it's just been only a few weeks, I think, and
Yeah.
it's attracted a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Because of feedback.
I mean, I think there's an appetite, especially right now. There's a lot of heavy news around Methuen and a lot of negativity around the political season, as there always seems to be. So I think you just kind of hit a nerve with folks.
Well, I'm not alone. Like I said, I planted the seed, and everyone has contributed to it. And it's not just Methuen. I have people that are in the group that are from around the area that have asked to join, and I'm not going to say no. It's a public group. Come join us.
Yeah.
It's fun, and it feels good to do good. It feels good to share good news.
And that's really all it is, right?
That's it.
It's just sharing good news, inspirational quotes,
Yeah.
just anything positive.
Anything at all. And if there's positive stories or things that you know about that are good at happening around, post it. Come and join us. It's a great time.
Last I checked, you were like 450.
I don't even know. Is it
Yeah.
really that high?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't even know. That's great.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
good.
a lot of followers. I mean, in just a short amount of time. That's what.
Wow.
And
That's pretty cool.
And just a variety of different posts on the page. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Thank
I mean,
you.
what do you think you want to do with it? Just use it to kind of
Help
spread
you.
that message.
Yeah, just be nice, be kind, may help others. Pass it forward. So many good things have happened to me and my family personally. We've been blessed. So why not just share and help other people make each other feel good? That's it. I'm just like the base, and everyone has just blossomed from it. I really haven't done much, I don't think.
I mean, this isn't your personal first time getting involved. You helped organize folks to just get out for the school budget debate, right?
I did.
And I mean, that was a big undertaking. And then you mentioned up front, just with Megan coming. Can you talk a little bit about your son and the charity you all are running there?
Yeah, of course. We're going on our 4th year. Jake's Mission for Teddy's Team. He has a group on Facebook. And altogether, Jake, Alana, and Zachary. Alana and Zachary are his younger twin brother and sister. Altogether, they have raised almost $11,000 for Teddy Bruschi's charity for stroke awareness, and it's called Teddy's Team, and they have a Facebook page and a website. They raise stroke awareness and funds for survivors and their families, and you can go on their website and their Facebook page and find out all about that. But my kids have just kind of made this their mission to continuously raise money because Jake said he looks up to Teddy. And so when Megan was up here at the high school, she did a little interview with Jake, and she asked him, what does it mean to be kind? And if you look online, if you go onto the Positively Methuen page, you'll see the video. It's actually tagged at the top. And his answer was, if I wasn't kind, I don't know who I would be. The whole room fell silent, and I cried. So that's what it's about. Just spread kindness.
You got us tearing up right now. Proud mom, right?
He's 9 years old, and where does that come from?
Yeah.
So I'm learning from them, really. And I think it's not a bad thing to feel that good.
Can you at least acknowledge that they may have modeled that after you and your husband, Greg?
Oh God, I don't know. I guess. I mean, I try to, be kind as much as I can, but nobody's perfect, and I'm definitely not a perfect person. We all learn and we grow, and each day is a new day. And I've learned personally that life is really, really short. You just don't know how much time you have here, so why not make it really good?
The in terms of the variety of folks, talk about just like the variety of messages you've seen posted already, just in the Positively Methuen group.
It's everything. It's everything from just memes of words of encouragement, keep your chin up, to videos recently of like the Ellen video that she did with George Bush. Things that people see online from other sites, just things that really make you feel good. There's such a wide range.
You had some videos from Methuen Day up there too, right?
Yeah, I did, yeah. I walked around Methuen Day for a bit and just wanted to capture our good community and want people to see how good we really are. And not to say that anything that's political is bad, it's just this is a different place to go to, just to see what's good and uplift you up and maybe take a vacation from anything that may be bothering you that day or that hour. Come in, see what's going on, join us if you want to. It's a public group, anybody can see the posts. It's really positive.
Well, it's definitely inspirational for us and I think a lot of other folks, so it's good to talk to the person behind it. I really appreciate the time.
I just planted the seed. Everyone else has gone with it, so
Awesome.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Great job there by Luann Santos, and it's a public group that anyone can join, folks. So it's Positively Methuen, and there are two. Just so you know, if you just look it up, this new group is the one. When you do the search with a big blue heart there. So check that out. Join the group. A lot of positive energy there, and I think I think that's one thing where crowdsourcing is definitely needed in terms of spreading that positivity. So great job by Luann. So I want to move on next, and like I said, we'll kind of we'll get into some positive news from around the city to end this show. Now I want to switch gears, and Rick, I totally agree with you. Rick Buck says Methuen needs all the positive energy it can get. Absolutely correct. And so we'll try to do our part at the end of the show here. So I want to switch gears now to discuss city issues with one of the city councilors, not in a active election this election season, because no one ran against he and Una Ziegler in the East. So let's talk to City Councilor Steve Saba. Here on Looped In Live, Tim Wood, joined by East District City Councilor Steve Saba. He's running again for re-election, but he is running unopposed in terms of candidates. He and Eunice Ziegler. He'll still need votes to actually officially get elected. But he was one of the first guests that we had here on Looped In Live. One of the first folks that appreciated the platform. So as we come back, one of the first folks I wanted to talk to. Plus, we haven't heard a whole lot from you during this season because you haven't had to run a race.
No, unfortunately, that's the case.
So what have you been up to?
Well, first of all, Tim, I've been busy, but I want to thank you first for getting back in the local media platform here. I have to tell you honestly that the real voters, the voters at home that are trying to sort things out, I talk to people all the time in the supermarket, various places, and so many people have talked about the fact that they miss your input, they miss your reporting, they miss seeing two sides of an issue, and people out there that are listening have so much trust and faith in what you're doing. So I think it's really important that you're back, and I wanted to welcome you back.
Thank you. I mean, it's a nasty time in the city, and
It is.
and just since I got back,
It's very
I was kind
nasty.
of hoping the level of discourse had improved while I was gone, and it hasn't.
No, I think it's gone the wrong way. It's very nasty. The political climate is ugly right now. Something that I never thought that I would see in our town, Methuen. You know, Tim, I was born in Methuen. I was raised in Methuen. My wife was raised in Methuen. We raised our kids in Methuen. But before that, my parents were from Methuen. My father, he was recently in the Tribune, captain of the Methuen High football team in 1940, graduated in 41. And before him, his parents, my grandparents on both sides lived in Methuen. And, you know, my grandmother, Annie Saba, she had a little place on Broadway called Annie's Meat Pies back before I was born. And, you know, Gigi Subs, Eva Saba, Saba's Pharmacy, Saba's Market. We go way back, you know. So this is, I consider Methuen obviously my hometown. And I got to tell you, first of all, I'm proud of Methuen. I love this community. I think we have so much to offer. But I'm concerned right now over the political climate as well as some of the stuff that's been going on, you know. So it's interesting. But yeah, the atmosphere is tough right now.
So let's talk about some of the stuff that's been going on. I think probably the main topic on most of the voters' minds that I talk to is the ongoing police contract dispute.
Yeah.
What can you say in terms of where this is in terms of being resolved?
Okay. Well, it's right now. It's in the hands of where it belongs. It's in the hands of the lawyers. But you know, let's look at this. Since a lot of people, and you're right, everywhere when I go out, that's still the number one thing people talk to me about. So let's look at the whole situation. When you look back in 2017, when the city was relatively quiet, nobody knew anything about any of this stuff going on, and you had a council, we had a mayor who at the time was sick, and people were concerned about him. But you know, he was very proud of the work that he had done, and he went to that council back then and said, "Look, I've done a lot. I feel like I've accomplished a lot, but really I want to be able to leave the next administration, the next mayor in good hands. I want to get all these contracts approved." And I wasn't able to do the school side, but I did a lot on the city side. And I'm hoping that we can get these in before we're a lame duck administration. So I'm going to be giving you 8 contracts and hope, you know, no changes, you know. So that was the atmosphere in that council. I've been critical about the council. I've been critical over the way everything went down. But you at least have to be fair and understand that they came in here thinking, okay, here are 8 contracts that were presented to the council as, you know, nothing more than 0, 2, and 2, a couple of minor ancillary changes, nothing different, no surprises, unfortunately. And, you know, as a council, you can imagine sitting in one of those chairs and saying, okay, you know, here we go, 8 contracts. You know, you get the police contracts, you look out in the audience and you say, okay, we have our police chief sitting there, and he's not saying anything. And, you know, of course, the police are the police. We trust everything that they do. You look over at the auditor, he doesn't say a word. You look over at the solicitor, he doesn't say a word. And the mayor says 0, 2, and 2. And these people that had about 280 pages of documents between these 8 contracts, did they read them all? Let's face it, no, they didn't. Should they have? Absolutely,
I mean,
especially now.
That's
Especially
a question
now,
a lot
they
of
should
people
have.
asking.
But the reality is, when you look at that atmosphere and the fact that they're advised, city councilors are part-timers, and you know, should have reviewed it. I review everything, but I can see how some of this stuff slipped through, and unfortunately, that's how we got the situation. You know, you're aware that we sent in a letter to ethics.
Well, and that's what I wanted to talk about next in terms of why now in terms of this letter to ethics? I mean, this has been something that you've been advised to do for a while, and
We
or
were.
that the council's been advised to do for a while. Why now?
Well, we were advised by the IG letter to request ethics. Now, what a lot of people think is we did nothing, but I know that the solicitor did reach out to ethics. I know that a couple of other counselors did. I and Councilor McCarty, we were here, right here. He was sitting there and I was sitting here, and we called ethics and spoke to them. And at the time, ethics' response is, we're really not interested.
Right.
We're not
Right.
interested. And to put a request in to force ethics to say something when they're not ready to look at it, or maybe they are looking at it, or they weren't ready to discuss it with us. But what happened recently is it came to our attention that there were some new discoveries. And one was the fact that the contract that was negotiated and verbally agreed upon by the mayor and the union was not the contract that was submitted to the council. So that contract came in and the mayor said, all right, great. He basically said, all right, let's just make this punctuation change. Let's change these small minor things and just clean it up, and then I'll sign it. So that was what they supposedly did. But what's become quite apparent, quite obvious now, is that sections 9, 10, and 11 of that letter to ethics, and I posted the whole thing on stevesaba.com. You can go to stevesaba.com, read the entire
We posted as well on
document.
the Loop Week
But if you look
Facebook
at
page.
numbers 9, 10, and 11 specifically, it talks about how the contract was altered and sent in. Nobody understood that, okay? And yes, perhaps they should have read it. I'm not going to argue that. But realistically, nobody knew that was snuck in. When you're negotiating in good faith, you're supposed to do certain things openly and say, okay, we made these changes. That wasn't done. And it was never agreed upon. So that's the basis of the letter to ethics right now. There's a whole bunch of other issues. How the contract was negotiated, how it was voted on. There's a whole bunch of issues. But these new components to that are covered in sections 9, 10, and 11 explains why the letter went in now.
Now, just to be fair, in terms of what you're saying, the union attorney Gary Nolan, he is saying that there was no switch that and quite honestly, union the Superior Officers Association, the union president Captain Greg Gallant, has said similar the same thing, and said that there was no switcheroo. It was just that they were trying to be as transparent as they can in terms of the language, but that the Zani administration wanted to keep focusing on the 0, 2, and 2.
Well, I think that, what they say and what's reality, unfortunately, in this case, are two different things. I'm going to be honest with you. I've lived this contract since it became a public issue early in 2018. And a lot of times, let's face it, the union is going to not agree with what the letter to ethics says. They're not going to say, oh, they're absolutely right. There were things altered, and we, whatever. So they're going to give their side of the story. I think there's compelling evidence to show that there clearly were two documents, and you can see them on that letter as part of the exhibits. And no, I don't agree with their assessment at all. I believe that it was altered. I believe that the way it was altered was done in a way, to be honest, it's my opinion, and I base my opinion on everything that I've seen. I think it was done in a way that was designed to bypass the existing mayor and the council at that time, designed to go by them. Now, I'm not going to say it was a union or it was this person or that person. I'm just saying that the way it all came about, it bypassed a lot of people.
I mean, even if you look at the city council meeting where Mayor Jajuga first brought up the contract dispute and the fiscal impact it may have on the city, he even said right there in open session, like, whoever put that language in there was, I'm paraphrasing, but was being sneaky, knew what they were doing, and was being sneaky.
Yeah. Well,
But let me just ask you in terms. I mean, there's plenty of folks out there that will say that the timing of this is politically motivated, just in terms of election season. The timing of this is motivated by the fact that this is due to come before arbitration soon, in terms of the contract dispute. How do you answer that in terms of the timing?
I think that's absolutely wrong. I think that's people are saying things. All comes down to the social media attacks, and people don't have to be accountable for what they say. But in all reality, the timing makes sense. The timing happened because it was just discovered earlier. Around April, it was discovered. The attorneys that are working representing the city did a lot of research and had been going through this. They brought it to the attention of the council just recently, and they released the letter that they sent to ethics. The day they released it is when I posted it. That is not, the attorneys have no interest in politics, nor does ethics, nor does anyone else that may be investigating the situation. The timing is what it needed to be, because once we got that information and we were ready to go is when we were asked as a council to approve sending the letter, which is what we did.
I'm assuming that the vote to do this, to have this letter drafted, you can't, it didn't take place in open session. Like, that's where other people are confused.
Right.
It didn't take place in open session, so we don't know like the extent of the vote. I'm assuming, since it was sent on behalf of the council, that there had to have at least been a majority of councilors that supported sending the letter.
Yeah, that can be assumed, and it should be assumed that there were at least a majority. I'm not going to talk about what was discussed in open session, but yes, obviously the council had a discussion in open session and voted, in executive session, and voted to go ahead and send the letter as requested by the attorneys. That was it. The rest of it is all public, as to how this went about. I'll tell you, with the argument of some of the politicians talking about time being, suspect here. I'm just concerned because this letter represents the city. It represents every taxpayer. It represents every resident of Methuen. And I don't see this as a political move in any way, because it doesn't matter who is occupying the mayor's office in January. It doesn't matter who is representing the city council. It's our job to protect the city. It's our job to protect the taxpayers. Okay? And this is an obvious move that needed to happen. And it's just one step as we move through the process. I get concerned when there are political candidates questioning the motives of the letter, or when they start trying to say that, well, this doesn't make sense or that doesn't make sense. I get really concerned about that, because if they get elected, they've got to act for the overall goodness of the taxpayers here. But aside from that, there's there should not be a political issue at all. Good, or no matter what side you're on, whether you're running for office or you're not running for office, no matter what side you're on, we should all be representing the taxpayers of Methuen. It's that simple.
Let's take a quick break here. We'll come back with City Councilor Steve Saba right after the break here on Looped In Live. Attention small business owners. Looped In Live wants you. Help us keep the conversation alive and continue with the only weekly show devoted to news, current events, and the leaders and newsmakers of Methuen. Get the best marketing bargain in the Merrimack Valley and support local news and independent journalism. For just $50 per week, your business will be promoted on the web, social media, and in our shows to our wide-spanning audience. Call or text me, Tim Wood, at 843-290-6242 today, or email me at tim@methuentoday.com. Back here on Looped In Live, Tim Wood with East District City Councilor Steve Saba. Steve, how do we get past this police contract? Like, how do we start to heal the city from all of the negativity here?
Well, the first thing is that we have to get past the police contract. It has to be resolved. And right now, it's in the hands of the lawyers, as I said earlier, and the union, in my opinion, should be coming back to the table and negotiate, but they're holding out. They're pending the election, the results of the election, which I understand. But we have to get this resolved because so many issues are being held down as a result of this 24-person union. And I can see it. And people that watch the meetings closely can see that other decisions that the council makes, whether it's approving a CBA for another union or many other decisions, you can see how councilors say, well, how is that going to affect this issue with the police superiors? It's really a black cloud over the whole city. We've got to get by that. And then once we can get by that, then we can start focusing on the real problems of the city, other problems, and getting our city back on track. But that's a real big stumbling block that we have to get by first.
How do you answer those who say, well, you've clearly got to be anti-police here, and why are you so against the police?
Honestly, I can just chuckle at that because there's nobody more conservative-minded, nobody more pro-police than I am. And I have always been like that. My kids, I brought them up that way. My family in general is all like that. Friends that I know, friends that have known me for a long time will tell you how conservative-minded I am, how it irritates me when any police officer around the country is under scrutiny for split-second actions and how difficult it is for them. I am 100% pro-police, okay? But some of this has to be put on 24 people, okay? Because the police union, and I've spoke to somebody in Chicago, believe it or not, on their police force that has been watching this, and said to me, Steve, what they're doing, what's going on is hurting the reputation of police, as we're in an era where police officers are going out of their way to try to show the softer side of them, try to show the good side, where they go out of their way to do good deeds in the community. Absolutely.
And to be fair, this police department has done a lot of that.
They've done a great amount of that. And up until this contract, let's talk about that. I've been very proud. I've said it publicly that I'm proud of what our police department has accomplished. I've always talked about the fact that they've got cutting-edge technology, cutting-edge training. They do a great job, all right? But unfortunately,
and
this
using
contract...
social media, quite honestly, using social media for the good versus evil in terms of informing and reaching out to the community as wide as they can.
They've done a good job with that. They've also, I think, personally, they've used social media also to help with their own cause in this battle. But again, you've got to put some of that responsibility on that particular group, okay?
Yep.
I am pro-police. I always will be. It does not mean that I believe, and you got to ask, anyone who looks at the situation should ask one question. Do you think that Methuen captains are justified to make $425,000 before details and overtime? When you add in details and overtime, you're between $500,000 and $600,000 a year. Yes or no? Is that reasonable? Because I say it's not. And I think that we need, I have so much respect for them, but it's not reasonable to assume that any community can withstand that type of a pay for 5 captains. And it trickles down as you go down the rest of the 24 members, but it's all ridiculous.
So why are you running again? Let me preface this just by saying, you've faced threats, you've faced, the public scrutiny. That's what you got in for. That's that. You needed. That's the cost of doing business, so to speak, when you're an elected official. But you faced a lot of stuff, and you faced stuff, quite honestly, from members of the media, the so-called media, that some of the most vile, reprehensible stuff I've seen in my career in media that really forced me to be more of an activist and advocate for decency than I'm used to
Yeah.
doing, quite honestly, in trying to be impartial as a journalist. So
Yeah.
you faced all that, and so and so why are you running again?
I'm running because this is my city. I'm sorry, it's my city, and I believe in my city, and someone's got to do it. I've always had the philosophy that don't just be a part of the problem, don't just complain about the issues. If it bothers you that much, make a difference and make a positive difference. And that's why I ran. And now that we're in the middle of some very interesting issues, I'm not going to walk away from that. I had second thoughts about running again, but I thought, no, what is that going to do? How am I going to live with myself if I just walk away from this? So, but you know, as far as what you define as media, Tim, honestly, you know, anybody can go on, and I don't care if they're just on social media or if they're just printing something or whatever the case is. And unfortunately, there is no accountability right now. But people can go on and say or do whatever they want, and it's pretty nasty. I don't buy into that. First of all, I don't read that publication. I'm not going to give any credence to it. And to be honest,
it's not just honest. It's not just one publication. It's it's the. I mean, it's you said the word accountability.
yeah.
When you decide that you're going to be a journalist or you're going to publish something, there is a power that comes with that. They used to call it the power of the pen. Now, in the fourth estate of journalism, there's ethics and standards that you're subjected to, and you have to be accountable for that. And so, as much as I believe in free speech and the freedom of the press, there also has to be some accountability on our side.
So who's going to who holds you accountable?
I don't. I mean, that's the thing. There's a like a moving scale in terms of how we hold media accountable and how we hold people accountable in general, and it's scary.
I think that there is accountability, and it's in the hands of readership or listenership. Okay, so I know, for instance, this brings us back to what I said at the very beginning of this interview. People would walk up to me and we'd be talking about the city, and they'd say, "Boy, I really miss the Loop Weekly. I really miss reading or watching Tim Wood because he would give the whole story." That was refreshing to people. And right now, you brought up, well, there was that one major incident, but the interesting thing about that was that initial attack on my family, myself, my family member, happened on a Thursday. And I heard about it from one other local politician and said, "Did you see this?" I said, "No, I don't even know that. I don't watch it at all." But so you might want to watch it because they dragged your wife into this. Well, okay. And I mentioned it to a few of my family members that Friday. And I was driving home from my son's football game. He was playing at Mass Maritime. And I started getting phone calls. And it turned out that one of my kids posted on social media about that attack and about this. And they posted the video of it. And then all of a sudden, it just took a life of its own. And at that point, it was apparent to me that nobody was paying attention to that person until someone on my side brought it out, okay? And then it took me the rest of the weekend to get my family and my friends to stop responding whatsoever. And once they did, it died down. Now, a few weeks later, a person that wrote on that same platform wrote a story defending me. And do you know how many people told me they saw it? Zero. Nobody. That person reached out to me and said, "I want you to know I wrote the story." I said, "Oh, thank you." So I had to go look for it. Nobody in Methuen, unless you're a politician, politically connected, wanting to know, oh, did I get mentioned? Did I not get mentioned? Whatever, pays attention to it. But the voters, the residents, by far do not pay attention to it. So it really doesn't, it's bad. It was insulting. It was disgusting. It says more about that person than it does about me or a family member or a supporter of mine. But again, that person gets what he's due. He gets no readership and nobody paying attention, unless they're an insider and they want to see if they're in the paper. That's it. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, no, I think it's
And I've said that to other candidates, other people. I've said, listen, don't worry about what's being said on that platform. It's okay. It's not even worth talking about now, to be honest with you.
absolutely.
But social media in general, let's talk about social media.
I think accountability is where we started with this, and like you said, social media.
Yeah, social media is interesting because while it's great, it makes information readily available. There is no accountability again, and I was talking again over the police issue to a college professor out of California who was visiting here but had been following this whole issue. And this was probably August of 2018. And he said something very interesting. He said, I'm studying this because I teach politics and I teach, unionization, et cetera, in school. But what's really interesting is how social media is playing into this. And he made a very interesting point. He said, people, you tell your kids, be careful when you go online. Be careful what you post because everybody can see it. But as adults, a lot of these people don't even understand the fact that while they might be trying to attack you and they might be showing off to their group, they picture them all in their mind as they're sitting there in their bathrobes, in the middle of the night typing on their computer. They don't realize that everyone's got access to this. And it's interesting that people are watching this and studying this and say, look at how low people will go to make comments that they have no justification. They have no backing. They literally can make a comment. And people will either buy it or not. But this is the person that pointed out to me, but if you really study the following on those social media sites, they do tend to be just the same people.
Same 6 people.
It's incredible. Well, yeah. 6 and their aliases. And no matter what site you go on a Methuen social media site, it's really the same people. It's not the people that I know are coming out to vote. So again, it is what it is. It's kind of sad and it's embarrassing for the community, but that's what it is.
It doesn't speak well for us as a community right now.
No, it doesn't.
Part of the reason why I started the paper and I decided to start my own media company rather than working for others was because I wanted to raise the level of discourse and because we've just gotten into these silos of if we don't agree on something, I have to hate you or I have to be on this team.
It's true.
And we can't have a civilized discussion, let alone a civilized debate about the issues.
We see this even in Washington, national level, but no, it's sad that it's happening here in Methuen. It really is. And I just think that, you have to understand that what's being said there is not the mainstream. So you just go on, you do what you believe. And that's what I'm doing. I do what I believe is right. I do what I believe the people that put me in office expect of me. And I find that the rewarding side of that is when I'm out there and people come up to me and say, Steve, you keep fighting for us. You are representing us. I believe in what you're doing because you believe in the taxpayers and the voters. That's the type of message that keeps driving me.
Absolutely. And I think that I think social media is very similar to this whole debate about conflicts of interest.
Yeah.
I've said it. I'll continue to say it. I think that conflicts of interest are about what you decide to do with those conflicts. Are you going to create cronyism and nepotism, or are you going to handle the conflicts above board ethically? I think social media is the same way.
It is.
social media can be used for such good. I mean, just this, for instance, and again, I'm not tooting, but I mean, just the technology to be able to do this, to be able to have this kind of discussion, to be able to reach larger masses with one click. It's a great tool, but it's also there's a responsibility that comes with that, and when we're not responsible, then it becomes an evil.
Well, that and because of the lack of responsibility of people that are doing this, it's a new platform that's taken off, but also it's rapidly evolving. And just going back to 2017 when I was running for office, I could post something and get 1,500 views and 1,000 likes and dozens of shares, and so could anybody else. Okay, and now you go on and you look at things that are being posted, and no likes or a couple of likes, maybe a couple of shares, very few views. People are now understanding because the people that have their hands on all of this are abusing it, and people are realizing that it's not, what you read is not good, and it's not healthy at all. To see somebody to see them attack you because you want to come out and start your platform and to attack you the way they have been, and saying that you're not legit because you don't agree with our platform, how is that okay? How is that healthy, Tim? But I'm going to tell you, when the dust settles, I believe that the people that are going to be moving along are going to be the people that stick with their their beliefs, and they're just wanting to stay above board and not sinking below for low hits. I think that if the people that are following you believe that what you say is as accurate as it possibly can be, you're going to keep readership. It's that simple.
That's all. I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's all we have.
Yeah, it is
our word and our integrity, and
yeah.
that in you have to put your faith in people, and that's scary. That's a scary thing to begin with.
It is,
and it's a scary thing with this election. It really is. And let's take a quick break. We'll talk more about that. We'll talk about the election season. We'll talk about what happens after the election, right after we get back here on Looped In Live. Attention small business owners. Looped In Live wants you. Help us keep the conversation alive and continue with the only weekly show devoted to news, current events, and the leaders and newsmakers of Methuen. Get the best marketing bargain in the Merrimack Valley and support local news and independent journalism. For just $50 per week, your business will be promoted on the web, social media, and in our shows to our wide-spanning audience. Call or text me, Tim Wood, at 843-290-6242 today, or email me at tim@methuentoday.com. Well, hi. The wrong camera view at that moment, back here on Looped In Live. So I originally was thinking that I was going to separately stream the last part of this interview, because we went way long in the third segment. But considering the folks that I'm seeing online, I'm going to go ahead and play the third part of that interview. It's about 40 minutes, so just so you know. And then we'll wrap it up by giving some shout-outs to some good stuff going on around the town. Back here on Looped In Live, Tim Wood and breaking news deliverer Steve Saba. While we were in the break here, Steve told me that our request to change our name on our Facebook page from Loop Weekly to Methuen Today has been approved. I didn't even know that.
Congratulations.
So breaking news from Steve Saba. So let's talk about just in terms of your thoughts here on these races and why 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 do you even have thoughts on these races? Let's put it that way.
Well, why do I have thoughts on the races? Because, look, I've been on this council for 2 years. 2 of probably the most contentious years ever in the city, when you think about the issues that we're dealing with. And I will tell you that getting elected, I've said this to a lot of the new candidates that I've met with, that getting elected is one thing. If you win the election, hey, great, we won the election. Now the reality sets in, and you have got to go to these meetings. And as a council, we have to work together, and we have to work together with the mayor, and that we have to be prepared no matter who gets in, that we're going to work together. But in reality, we've got to have a council that can work well. We should not all always agree. No. But we have to respect each other's opinions, and we have to respect each other's reasons for how they're going to vote. So to be able to have a conversation as a council, whether it's a one-on-one or in open session discussing an issue, we got to work together, and we're not going to overcome these major issues that are going on in the city if the council is divided. And right now we are dealing with that now, unfortunately.
That's the prism that you look through as you're kind of evaluating and seeing.
Yeah, I'm looking at, personally, who I think I can work with, not necessarily agree with. I mean, you can say, boy, I'd love to have these people because I think we'd always see each other's opinions, but that's not important.
That's not
good
for the city either, honestly.
I look and say, that's right, it's not. It would be a problem. I'm looking at saying, just councilors that we can work together.
Yeah.
That's it.
And working together doesn't mean that we're pushing all the same things through. It just means that we can.
Working together, my definition of working together are independent minded. Tim, whether we want to talk about it or not, there is a real dark elephant in this city right now, which is there is a group of people that are comprised of old-time politicians that are extremely well organized, and I'll probably get flack for saying this, but tough, extremely well organized and have their own agendas. And I've seen it happen with some of the younger councilors especially, and some of the older councilors that I'm serving with now, where we were all approached at one time or another. I was approached, and I rejected that, okay? But some of them, that believe that this is their future of politics, I don't have desires to be a long-term politician at all. I want to help my community, and that's it. But when people that look and say, geez, they're being told, look, you can retire in 30 years or 40 years, having led a successful career as a politician and have all the money you want. Unfortunately, it raises some interest on some of these people, Yeah. So realistically, I just want, my definition of a good council are 9 members who will not be influenced by any side, who will come in and look at an issue and vote yes or no based on their understanding of the issue and what they believe is best for the community. That's it. Is that asking too much? I think it might be, but I hope not.
So let's start with mayor. Let's start with the mayoral race. First of all, why didn't you run? I mean, there was a lot of folks that I heard from that said, well, for the things that he's fought for and the things that he showed in his first couple of years, why not Steve Saba?
I didn't run because, number one, I didn't have that interest to do that. But also, if you choose to run for mayor, you have to give up your income. You have to give up a job that you have. In my case, I have a business that I do well with, and I have to be able to take care of my customers and be there for them, and to be able to be willing to walk away from that, to take a 2-year job that there's no guarantees any further than that, is a major commitment to anybody. And I have to take care of my family. If I were retired.
No, I mean, we were saying that back before people were even announcing. We were saying that on Looped in Live. The criteria or the list in terms of who would realistically be able to run for mayor.
Right.
It is a
Right.
small pool
It
because,
is.
like as you said, you either have to be committed to being a full-time politician, a lifetime politician. You have to give up your job. So maybe it's someone that's retired. Maybe it's someone that's between jobs. But it's a limited pool to begin
It
with.
is a limited pool, and it's interesting. I mean, let's face it. You get a good candidate that runs, and again, going back to that what I call the Methuen's deep state of these underground politicians. Look, there are people out there that they've got a bombshell ready to drop. Shall I drop it today? I don't know if you know what I'm going to talk about, but I'll drop the bombshell that they want to do just before the election. They're going to say that Steve Saba is supporting a certain mayoral candidate because he wants $1 million contract for pot for his family. Now, the reality is that I did not vote for medical marijuana. I did not vote for recreational marijuana. I'm anti-marijuana in Methuen because I don't believe it can be controlled properly. I don't think we're ready for it. But yet, I have a brother who has a license in some other towns that I am not tied with in any way. He's my brother. I love my brother, but I'm not a partner in any way or anything else. And we've got two different philosophies, both politically as well as that. So you know what? They're going to drop things like that. Now, here I bring that up because it's interesting, because I chuckle at that because it's so ridiculous. But you have candidates that are running for office because they love their community. Is that asking too much? Isn't that what we all want? And yet they will. Bill Manzi told me one time, Dennis Zogli also told me the same thing, that it's not what they dig up on you. Because I said to them, I've lived a pretty boring life. There's nothing on, they're not going to find anything. It's not what they make, it's not what they find, it's what they make up. Okay? And you've got people that are running for office right now. They're
and how well
out
they
out
sell
there.
that to the voter.
And how well they sell it, and it's sad because I watch that. I watch how they're attacking people. I mean, you watch Bill Bryant on the West, and I served with him on so many sports leagues. That's how I started. I started coaching. I started being directors of various sports leagues, MAIC, doing stuff just for the community. And that's how Bill has gone through the range here. But he's watched what's happened in his community. And he decides to run, and he's being absolutely attacked by this deep state side, which infuriates me. You know what? Bill, what do you stand for? I happen to believe the guy is phenomenal. He cares about his community. And I will say that I certainly hope he gets elected, because I know that we don't. It's funny because when I ran the basketball league and he was a coach, he'll be mad at me for saying this, but I suspended him for a year for flipping out at a basketball game.
And he's admitted to it. He's admitted to it on the shows we've done.
It's just you know what? It's not. It's just I believe that
shocking concept. Somebody owning their mistakes.
I believe that
past them.
he is going to be phenomenal for this city, and he is not going to get influenced by anyone. We will not agree all the time, but that's okay. I believe he will be a phenomenal city councilor.
So, I think the one thing that I just wanted to say was just that, I applaud anyone who runs, especially nowadays, especially in this specific climate. I applaud anyone who's stepped up and has run, has put their papers in, gotten the signatures, done the campaigning, done the door knocking. All that said, so you mentioned Bill in the West. Let's go back to mayor in terms of who do you see? You've worked with Jen. You've heard what Neil Perry has to say in terms of his qualifications.
Look, I know I'm going to get elected because I'm running unopposed in the East, but I will work with whoever gets elected.
Yeah.
It's that simple, and
Absolutely.
we have to. And when we can talk about that
That's fine.
in detail. But I did. I met Neil about 20 years ago when we were both into youth sports, and I have to be honest, I was turned off at that point, but okay. And then now we've run into Neil again because he's on the scene again. But when I was dealing, and we're still dealing with this police issue, but again, as I told you before, so many things, the police issue keeps coming up, okay? And when we were dealing with that, Neil all of a sudden resurfaced, and I immediately said he's running for something, but okay. But he started attacking myself and Jim McCarty directly, saying that, the city had a bad deal with that contract and they should be paying it. And then he turned around when presented with the MOU, he said that I was reckless and that I should approve the MOU and I should pay it. I should move the funding to vote to do that. And I asked him a few times on social media because he has not met with me. But I've asked a few times on social media, Neil, I've got copies of those posts on social media that you put. So tell me today, tell us, because people want to know what kind of a mayor you're going to be. If you were in Jim Jajuga's shoes and took office at the beginning of 2018 and found out about this contract, what would you have done? And more importantly, and by the way, I didn't agree with how Jim Jajuga handled it, but I want to know, what would you have done? There's no right answer. But if you were sitting in my chair when presented with the MOU, how would you have voted? So, and he has not answered that question. His response to me was that, I've reached out to a mutual acquaintance on 3 occasions to meet with you, and you still haven't met with me. And I responded back and said, a mutual acquaintance. First of all, I told that mutual acquaintance, who happens to be a good friend of mine, yes, I'll meet with them. But why do we have to go through, have your people call my people? You know what? Call me on the phone and let's get together for a coffee. Because that's really what it's about.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, look, right now the jury is out on Neil. I'm sorry. I have reason to be concerned, and we haven't had a sit down to talk. But based on the attacks, he also attacked us again on voting not to pay for a privately owned building for renovations, when my job is to represent and support
the railroad,
the rail depot. My job as a counselor, I wake up every morning before I go to every meeting. I said, what is my main function? It is to look out for the interests of the residents and the taxpayers of this community. Okay, they're the ones that voted me in. Okay, I don't care where the money came from. It is a privately owned building and it's taxpayer money. Okay, but yet I was attacked again for voting no to do that renovation. Okay, so it makes me a little alarmed because you can say, well, Steve, you're going to have to work with him if he gets elected, and I say, well, Neil is going to have to work with the council if he gets elected, and we certainly are not off to a good start. But
we can't. There's one thing that folks can agree with is we can't have this relationship
that's right.
that develops
we cannot.
between the mayor and the council.
We can't have it again. We can't have it again. And I'm concerned when you read things or hear things or are told, well, reach out to my people or this or that. You're the candidate. I'm already a city councilor. And I'm not saying to you, reach out to my people. I am my people, but regardless. So listen, when I came into office in the beginning of 2018, when I was running in 2017, I had loyalty for no one. I had respect for nobody on that council or the administration. Okay, I was saying, you know what, we can do better than this. In dealing for these very 2 difficult years with Jen Canan as council chair, and seeing that seeing the attacks that she's been coming under, okay, and in knowing that while she stepped out of the meetings dealing with the police contracts, she easily could have hindered our attempts as city councilors, and she didn't do that. She when asked about procedure, parliamentary issues, whatever, how do we do this? She advised us and said, look, Don't listen to what you're told. Go to this part of the charter and review that. That will give you your answers. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Jen. I think that the underground has created this big issue of her conflicts. Look, she's got family members that are teachers, that are a police officer. That had nothing to do. That had nothing to do with the superior's contract. Yeah. Okay, and you know, it's not those. She does the right thing by recusing herself from a vote. Is doing what you're supposed to do, because we live in Methuen. She, like me, has lived in Methuen all her life. Okay, I've lived in Methuen all my life, and I've got family that's grown up in Methuen all of our lives. So naturally, there are going to be people that at one point or another gets a job somewhere in the city. But it's about being transparent. The real conflicts that have created the problems that we're dealing with are the professional, the political relationship conflicts. Okay, that city council
that are not transparent,
and the mayor that are not transparent, and councilors getting jobs in the police. These are none of them are family members. All right, but they all, you know, people looked out for each other, people helped each other. Those are the conflicts that have got this city in the trouble that we're in. All right, and I'm concerned once again that Neil, the people that are coming out to support Neil, are all part of a group of people that were in office before and are trying to get back in office. Now, I know I'm going to take criticism. I'm sure right now while people are watching this, they're going to be attacking, but that is the reality of the situation. So yes, I'm supporting Jen, and I think that Jen, you know, we've talked, people have attacked her on, well, how are you going to negotiate? Well, Jen, I asked her that question. And Jen answered, and it makes sense, because it's how I would do it if I were mayor. Look, if I were mayor, I would have a team of negotiators. I would have the CAFO, now that we have a CAFO. I would have an outside attorney, because we have identified an incredible law firm, Dominello, Valerio, and Hillman. John Foskett has saved this city millions of dollars right now. I will tell you that for a fact in dealing with this contract, okay? But they specialize in collective bargaining negotiations. If I were mayor, I would have the CAFO, I would have an attorney, an outside attorney, and I would make up a contract negotiating team that would negotiate all contracts. And as mayor, I would not be sitting on those negotiations. The reason is because when my team is negotiating and the union is negotiating, if they get up from the table and say, and they have a stone wall and they're going to get nowhere, my job as mayor is to come in and sit down with all of them and say, guys, get back to the table and let's come up with a reasonable contract here. Let's get this done, okay? Jen has told me that's exactly how she's going to do it. I believe in that. So it has nothing to do with a conflict of this union or that union. It's how you should negotiate the contracts. And you know, she's already told me, I mean, things that I believe in, that she wants to get all the contracts in parity. Why do we have some contracts? We dealt with a vote last night, the last meeting this week, with a union that, you know, I said I'm not supporting it because it results in they're getting 50% buyback on sick time when they retire. And right now we've got some employees, everyone used to be at 30 or 35% across the board with the max of 8,000 or 10,000. Now, because of mayors that wanted to be able to say, I want to be able to say 0, 2, and 2, but I'm going to give you this extra stuff. Now we got some employees that get 75% unlimited to their sick time. And miraculously in 40 years, never called in sick, apparently. And then you have some unions that are getting 50% unlimited. Then you get other unions that are getting 30 or 35% with a max of 10 or 8,000. We need to bring everyone into parity. And this is what she told me she wants to do. And
how did you and Jen vote on the, for instance, how did you and Jen vote? Because the official that you're speaking of, Tom Kelly, he ended up getting 75% of a buyback on his sick time.
It was outrageous, and I ended up voting, and it's one of the votes that I regret at this time. But I'll tell you why I voted it. At that meeting, first of all, I found out about that because I actually have in my office a list of everyone's buyback percentages. His was at 75, and that was given to him at the last agreement, okay? So that happened with the previous council, and I went back and watched that meeting. And the three, and Jen, Lynn, and Lisa voted no, okay? The rest of them voted yes. And that contract was a contract extension for Tom Kelly, giving him 2 more years and moving him from 35% with, I think, 10,000 limit to 75% unlimited. But that goes, he was a 41-year employee. That goes all the way back. Right. So at the end of the day, at that meeting, I read the entire thing, and I announced to people what we were voting on, and that this was going to result in a $113,000 check to this individual, okay? But at the time, we had a situation where he finished his contract, okay? You know, the police contract was at year 1 with zeros, okay? But he finished it. He was going out the door, number one. Number two, we had this mess going on, and as a city council with very little support, we didn't even have the outside law firm at that time. We had very little support on our side. And we were dealing with so many uncertainties that I felt, and I'll only speak for myself, that we could only fight so many battles at a time. But I also felt that we know that there are investigations. I hope there's still investigations going on, but there are. And if it comes out that he was faulty, then maybe we go after that, okay? But at the time, I voted to try to put one thing aside so we can deal with the more serious issues here, and I voted yes. And that is a vote that I tell everybody I voted, and I regret it. Because, you know, at this point, if I had the chance again, I would say no. I would say no, and I'll deal with yet another lawsuit and all of that. But you know, just in retrospect, looking back, it's easy to always look back.
Sure.
It is. In
terms of, so just from what you said, I'm assuming you're supporting Jen.
I am supporting Jen. I honestly believe that, again, selfishly looking at this part of a city councilor, what we've gone through, what we want to have a situation with is I want to be able to have a working relationship with the mayor, okay? And the council needs a working relationship with the mayor. I have never once caught her in a lie. I have never once caught her misleading anyone. I've got notes. I watch what she says. Never once. She says the things. She does what she believes, whether it helps her or not. But I am going to tell you right now, I've never caught her in a lie. And I do believe that whether we agree, and I know we're not going to agree on a lot of things, okay? She's the mayor. But if she comes in. You haven't
as counselors. I mean,
no, but you know what? I know that we as a council can at least work together. Now, if Neil gets in, so far the indication isn't there, but I'm gonna put everything aside and try to work with him. Because I certainly hope we have to do that. That's our responsibility. But I don't want to be told again that, well, I'm not going to come to the meetings, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to talk to you. You call my office to set up an appointment. I don't want to deal with that as a counselor. So right now the warning signs are there, but we'll see how it goes. But to answer your question, yeah, I'm supporting Jen.
How about, you mentioned Bill in the West. Any other thoughts in terms of the races?
Yeah, I think all the races in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think obviously.
We can start with at large.
Yeah, at large, I think that one that's been taking a lot of hits is Nick DiZoglio. Look, Nick takes hits, and again, he's the result of hits from people on his school board that have been attacking him on a regular basis, that are visually supporting a certain side of the political spectrum. But Nick, again, I believe that he will be an independent mind, that Nick will do what he believes is right. I do know that we can talk to Nick. Nick will talk and listen. And if he doesn't, he'll be on an island. But I believe that he is one person that we can talk to. And so I would like to see him.
When you say talk and listen, you mean just have open debate on
Listen,
issues.
have it, yeah, open debate. Listen to everyone's opinions, give his opinions back, and know that when you talk, if you and I discuss a situation, knowing that, you're going to make the right decision on what you feel and I do, and not having to feel like when you talk to me that my mind's already set up and there's no way I'm going to get through to him. You know how frustrating that is?
Yeah.
So I don't see that happening with Nick. So yeah, I'm hoping to see him get in. I think that Steve Angelo is just a breath of fresh air. The kid has a real job out there. He's working hard. I think he will do well. I'm hoping to see him. And it's interesting, but DJ is he's out there working hard. I just want to see whoever it is. I want to see people that can just work together.
How about the Central?
The Central, Jimmy McCarty, obviously, he's already proven himself. I mean, I wish we did have a candidate in the East, because I always believe that you can say what you're going to do the first time, but once you're in, the voters should look at your record and vote for you based on what you've done. Jimmy McCarty has done a phenomenal job. Again, like me, he's taken a lot of heat, a lot of attacks, a lot of pressure. And he's already shown that no one's going to sway him. He's going to do what he believes. I think that it's up to the rest of them. I know them all. I know Joyce. I know Joel, and I know DJ. And I just want to see people that will come out that will not be influenced by outside sources.
Now, you mentioned Bill in the West.
Yeah.
What else do you see in the West?
In the West, Frank Gallo and Mike Samad, I think, are both good candidates. I think they both are. Look, they're. I hate to say it this way, but we need some more taxpayers. We need people that are older, that know what it's like, know what they're fighting for. We've got a situation right now where we've got a lot of younger members on the council that really don't pay taxes, and they're representing the taxpayers. It's hard to do that, But I think that Mike and I know that Mike will be an independent, and I think that Frank will also. So either one of them, I think, would be great. But I definitely, I'm definitely pushing for Bill Bryant, and either one of them, I think, would be fine.
So, no matter how this pans out after the election, what is your plan? What is your hope for the next term, and for, you've admitted mistakes just here. You've admitted mistakes in, you guys had such long meetings at times. It's tough, and you had such issues. The levity of the issues that you dealt with over the last 2 years, I can't imagine not making mistakes in terms of the level of discourse, and you've owned that in terms of making some mistakes and some quick jabs that you probably wanted to take back.
You have got to be sitting in one of those chairs at, in some cases, 2 o'clock in the morning, listening to a bombardment of attacks and the intimidation factors that have been attempted. And you have to sit in that situation knowing that you're not like any other city council where you could be having a meeting and no one's really watching. Knowing that there are literally thousands of people watching it live on TV, that it's being broadcast, it's being recorded, that it's being viewed by people outside of the city, whether they're at a state or federal level investigating, or whether at, like the person I told you that's a college professor watching what's going on. Knowing that the news media are all watching. We've had meetings with the Globe, Fox News, and Fox 25, and they've all been in the WBZ.
Yep.
And when you're in those meetings, and the last thing that I worry about is the bloggers on social media, because honestly, whatever. But you're trying to stay focused and do what's right, and knowing that if you say the wrong thing, or if you slip or say anything that, that can throw what you're trying to do out of whack, it's going to happen. You got to be in that position.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's not healthy for the community. I think that everything should be out in the open, but in all honesty, the type of scrutiny that none of us are professional politicians. Some might want to be, but none of us are professional politicians that are currently serving on that council. We all ran for one reason or another as a representative of our community, and nobody knew what we were going to get into. No one did.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
How do you raise that level of discourse this next time around?
How do you raise the level of unity, bring it together?
Not even unity, but just civilized debate in that chamber.
I think that what happens is it's interesting, because what you have to do is you have to come to the meeting, first of all, prepared. So I get my packet delivered to me on Wednesday night. The police deliver it to each counselor. I open the packet, and I have literally Thursday, half the day Friday, because City Hall, to call and ask questions. Maybe Monday morning to ask questions. But I go through my packet. I want to make sure I understand everything. If I don't, I call that department head and ask them questions to make sure I understand it. So that my goal is to go into the meeting, maybe have a short discussion, hear what anyone else has found out, and vote. And it should be that simple. But in order to avoid what's happened on the council, every councilor has to have that mindset to come to the meeting prepared, but also come to the meeting knowing that we were already elected. Now the voters put us in office. Now it's time to get down to work. And we shouldn't be playing to the audience. We shouldn't be giving these long speeches. We shouldn't be, reading. I read one thing publicly during a meeting, and that was that contract, the 75% buyout contract that we talked about. I read that entire thing out because I thought it was important for the community to know what we were voting on and to know how I was voting, and everyone else. But aside from that, you're supposed to go in there and just work. I mean, we should know what the situation. So we got to have a council of 9 people that are going to go in there and just not care about ratings. Oh, how are we going to get more people to watch? That was horrible. People will watch because they're interested in knowing how we're going to vote. These meetings that lasted 5-6 hours, City Hall, the room would be full. And I'd see people waiting for their issue to come up down near the back of the agenda. And eventually they get up and they shake their hands and they walk out.
Yeah.
And that's not fair to them. And it's happening on at home. People watching the meetings. Going to watch a 4-hour, 5-hour meeting and they say, this is ridiculous, shut it off. That's not fair.
There's a nice balance in terms. I mean, you can achieve a balance in terms of helping to inform the community about some of the issues you're voting on, while in the chamber. But yeah, I mean, 4, 5, 6 hours and
it's not right.
30 minutes at a time from a counselor.
It's not right. That's not healthy. I mean, I think my longest talk, and I had a few of them. One was when I proposed cutting the $1.825 million from the police contract. I think I probably talked for 6 minutes. I mean, how can you possibly be in a city council meeting and talk for more than that without just playing to the wrong people, and playing to people that are not going to vote. All right. You have to get your point out. You have to listen and you have to vote. It's that simple, So yeah, you do have to have the discussion. I always post the meetings and I always tell people, go on, look at this agenda. If you click view, you'll be able to see the paperwork that we see,
What?
And Tim, what's important is that I tell people, call me. If you don't like a vote, or if you question why I voted, call me. Because that's when it should be discussed one-on-one.
One-on-one, yeah. Not
Like,
through the
I know
cowardice
that we're
of,
being filmed right now. I thought, once again, it's like we're having a talk, but
Yeah.
I say things, but no, seriously, it's just a one-on-one discussion, and I can explain every vote I take.
What are the things that you couldn't get to that you want to help focus on in this next 2-year cycle?
I think that number one is development in the city. I don't like the way the city has gone, the development. People talk about, well, in the West we have 2-acre zoning. No, citywide we have 2-acre zoning. On all open land, that was put in, I'll tell you when. It was in probably 1980, I'm guessing, 1986, when Bob LeBlanc was the town manager. He put in and he pushed through. I remember watching it. I was a teenager. No, I'm sorry, I was 26.
Oh, wow.
I was 26. I wasn't a teenager. I was 26. But I was watching that. And we changed the zoning citywide to 2-acre zoning. Okay? It's been ignored, especially on my side of town, on the east side, totally ignored. Totally, ridiculously. And while we build these giant projects, these giant 55 and older communities, and we're not thinking about the well-being of the city. Okay, so number one, I've always said, if you give out development, let's say to a Toll Brothers, you're going to put in 140 units. Well, 10% of those need to be affordable housing. And I can give you examples of developments around the area. Salem, Braymore Woods is one. I have a family member that lives there, and over there they have these beautiful 55 and older houses. They have big houses, then they have condo-style houses, self-independent, right? And then they have, I think, a 6-level high-rise, which is upper income. And then they have affordable income, all in the same development, and it all fits right in beautifully. All right, but if we do that and say that every development, 10% has to be affordable income, we'll never have to deal with 40B. We never did any of that, okay? I think that the infrastructure, we keep adding houses, we don't change. We've got plumbing, we got sewer lines and water lines that are over 100 years old. Yeah. I asked this council, I challenged them in meetings. When I was running in 2017, I took a tour of the water department. I took a tour of the sewer lines with Jimmy Burgess. I learned so much. I met with the police chief. I took a ride around with the police department. I've met with the schools. I tried to understand every area of this city. And some of the stuff I found, DPW related especially, was horrifying, okay? And I think that every counselor should be required to do that. I'm setting up, a couple of counselors reached out to me. Bill Bryan and Steve Angelo said, hey, can you set that up? I'm in the process of setting that up for them to go take some of these tours. But there's a hint to every other candidate. Do it. You got to know what you're voting on.
Yeah.
But infrastructure is huge right now. We've got to keep building our free cash and our stabilization fund. We haven't touched it now, but we got to get that to about $10-12 million.
How do we achieve more of a balance between these residential projects that are being built versus commercial?
Commercial is in trouble.
Yeah.
A healthy community needs 25% commercial tax base. A real healthy community is in the 30s.
Sure.
Okay? We're at 11.5.
Yeah.
Okay? And what are we doing to bring commercial? The Loop is one. I get it. We almost brought in a 40B project, a high rise, and that's when I really got involved in politics again. When that was coming through, that project has died down. We have an opportunity right now to reach out to the Loop and to Mathis, who owns that property across from the Loop, and say, look, we want to help you. We want to help you to help the city. We want to build a commercial so that maybe an extension of the Loop, okay? And by the way, retail and overall is not dead.
No.
All right, there are segments of retail that are thriving,
Absolutely.
including restaurants, coffee shops,
And there are segments. I
florists,
mean, you see, yeah, Linfield. Just take
that's
a look
right.
at
Look
Linfield.
at it.
Yeah.
But develop that section, okay? And we got to bring in more commercial real estate. We also have a lot of empty storefronts around the city that we can't just wait for people, for a business to call and say, hey, we want some information on this storefront here. Oh yeah, if you drive by, you'll see a phone number, call them. No. I want a community development department that's going to say, okay, I'm going to arrange for the owner of that property. We're going to meet there Friday morning at 10 o'clock, and I'll introduce you to him. That's what I want to see happen, because we have to invest in our own community. We have got to get this. We haven't even done anything on that because we've been faced on some of these ridiculous issues. Those are the issues that I'm concerned about. I'm also concerned about our schools. We need to get them to level 1 across the board. We need the highest level across the board for our schools. And I do blame part of that. Good part of it is on the state. Department of Ed, okay, I'll say it. They put these ridiculous requirements on teaching. Look, I believe that mathematics, how long has math been around? Since the beginning of time? Yeah. Okay? Mathematics, 2 plus 2 is still 4. Okay? But all of a sudden, you have to teach it a different way now. You have to do certain things. You're trying to make a science out of teaching students mathematics, and it's failing. It's failing. So we got to put some pressure, some pullback on the Department of Ed, get other communities that are struggling, because everyone's having this issue. I have a wife who's a school teacher. She's a math teacher. And I'm going to tell you, I don't talk to her about it because she gets too fired up. But I know a lot of the teachers. I've been involved in Methuen. Probably talk to teachers all the time. And it's not just in Methuen. Teaching is such a difficult job right
Absolutely.
now. There's got to be a way to make it so that a teacher wants to wake up in the morning and go to work, and that the kids want to come to school and look forward to their education without being afraid of being bullied or whatever else. So these are the things that I want to see improved in the city.
Steve Saba, I appreciate the time very much. We went a little long in this segment, but
we did. I did.
Yes,
you get me going. But Tim, this is awesome. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm glad. Like you say, I haven't had the opportunity to talk much.
Yeah, it's like
I'm not running against anyone, but I am running, and I am working hard in the community. So.
All right. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Thanks.
That's Steve Saba. Luckily, the mic was intact for enough of the interview so you could hear most of it. I think he was wearing his mic pack a little low so that it wasn't connecting with the receiver with all the hand swinging. All right. So I was going to initially stream that separately because it went long, but I decided, because there's a lot of good stuff in that last segment, that we'd include that in the show, so to speak. My family's eating behind me, so I'm just gonna. I wanted to share, and I'm gonna do this regularly. I'm gonna share some things that were on my Facebook feed, some positive things in the spirit of positively Methuen, which you should sign up for if you haven't signed up yet. I have no affiliation in running it, but the idea behind it, we when we were in the height of Loop Weekly, we used to do Tell Me Something Good Tuesday. I can't remember the exact name, but it was like, just anybody give me something good, and we would print it in the paper, or we would do something on Facebook or on the show. So here's what stood out on my Facebook over the last few days that I think is great news that should be shared with everybody. First of all, happy things on my Facebook feed. Again, if you want to share those, um, share them. I'll if we're friends, I'll see them on my Facebook feed, and I'll snatch them for the next show. Um, if whatchamacallit, if we're not friends, just friend request me at Tim Wood. Um, and that's the show for this time, folks. Well over 2 hours. I'm gonna go have dinner with my family. I hope you have eaten by now, or have a great night. Go Pats tonight. Hopefully a huge win over the Redskins. I'm a little nervous. Redskins. I mean the Giants. I mean, it's not the Redskins. The Giants. I mean the Giants have just the history with the Giants and things that always seem to go wrong against the Giants. They've got weapons. They got Daniel Jones. They've got some momentum. No Barkley, no Gallman, so they'll have a rookie running back. They've got some good weapons in wide receiver and a feisty new quarterback at the helm, and a pretty solid defense. So I think it's going to be a tougher game than the spread shows tonight, folks. But that's a whole, my take on that. It's a whole separate show. We'll do a sports show and talk more sports on that platform. So, but enjoy the game tonight, and we will talk soon. We'll definitely talk next Thursday. Gonna stream Looped In Live every Thursday. We're still working on the timing in terms of when we do this. We used to do it at 11 a.m. I'm trying it tonight at 5-ish to see if it works better for the audience. It's the flexibility that I do have, given that I'm doing it out of my studio. So we've got that flexibility. We're going to work on the times that work for folks, work for me, quite honestly. I know more folks would probably be watching at 8, 9 o'clock at night, but not tonight because of the Patriots, but in general, just from what I've seen in terms of the post city council that we do, that we have done. So have a great night, everybody. Thanks for watching live. Thanks for watching on demand. If you're watching this after the fact, please share it. Please let folks know that we are back. And as you can see, Methuen today is going to be our new home on online on Facebook and on the web at MethuenToday.com. That is coming soon. Very soon. We are feverishly working to get that up and running. Till next time. Definitely Thursday, might be before, but till next time, I'm gonna shave next time, I promise. Till next time, Tim Wood. Be kind to each other. Have a great night and weekend. Hopefully, it's not too rainy. The northeasters by us, whatever that was. And we will talk to you soon. All right. And I will try, if there's any after the fact questions or comments that I can answer in the comments, I will as well. Have a great night, everybody.